I'll be riding shotgun underneath the hot sun, feeling like a someone. I'll be riding shotgun.
Back with Tom Beccaro. He is the author of The Divided Era. And this is a great book to have on your shelf and to refer to all the time. And you'll just get a glimpse of how, Tom, this is nothing new to have such, hateful rhetoric. But it's a pretty bad time in American history. How does it rate?
Well, it's nowhere near as divisive as it was, say, during the Revolution, where there was 103 battles in South Carolina, not among troops or the British, just among citizens as part of the Revolution. That's how divided we were and angry. Then you go into the run up to the Civil War, and the Civil War, of course, is bad. Reconstruction was bad. Then it cooled off for over 100 years, and we're starting to ramp up, and that's because the stakes are rising. The higher the stakes, the greater the division.
Why are some rooting for a recession? I mean, this is a huge division. It's one of those things where you say people want President Trump to fail, or they want the country to fail just so Trump can look bad. Is this one of those things? Yeah,
we're getting to the point where I remember 8 years ago where remember Mitch McConnell said, my job is to make Barack Obama a one-term president. That's sort of in that kind of thing. But they don't want the president to do too well. Now, this open enmity for economic growth is just part of the more expanded and intense rhetoric about that. I mean, was it Bill Maher who says we need the economy to tank to save the Constitution? Interesting enough. You know, when Obama was obliterating the Constitution and lost 27 times, 9-0 in the Supreme Court or whatever it is, he didn't mention the Constitution. But yeah, if the economy's doing well, Trump's got a much better chance. They'd rather it dip and people lose jobs, and then the government can work again for Democrats, which is where they get their jobs and social welfare.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, this week we've heard some sort of junk from the left about reconstructing it. What are we talking about here? They're taking their toys and going home because they are not getting the people they want on there, and because Trump might have 1 or 2 more picks before it's all said and done.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. If you look at the entire Supreme Court history, by and large, the so-called conservatives keep the court where it is at any one given time and rely on the legislature to decide the laws and experiment. That's certainly what Scalia believed in, and by the way, the vast majority of those judges until the last 100 years. The Democrats want the court to create laws, and so if the court's not creating laws, they say there's something wrong with the court, which of course that isn't what the court should be doing. So yeah, they're upset about that. They're worried about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which, quite honestly, matters more to them than the economy. They will come out for Supreme Court justices on the left and social justice, not for the economy next year.
It's such a defining thing about America, who's on that Supreme Court and how they structure everything.
And that should not be the case. And the only reason it is because government is so large. Yeah. During Obama's term, after the first year, the Supreme Court decided more major policy than the Congress because there were no bipartisan bills, no major bills. It was the Supreme Court that dealt with Obamacare. It was the Supreme Court that dealt with gay marriage. All the major things, most of them, came after the first year and came out of the Supreme Court, which is not the way our system should be.
Another thing we noted on your social media had to do with border security, immigration, and you made a note about so many people have changed their tune. Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren once told illegal immigrants, get in line. And now, of course, it's a whole different ballgame. And just another note, we have seen the numbers for July have come in for the apprehensions at our southern border. They're down, it's weird to say down, to about 80,000, whereas they had been up to 130,000 earlier this year. So those are some good numbers. We're getting some cooperation from Mexico. So good on Trump?
Well, it should be. The Democrats ramped up the issue. Their electoral strategy, don't believe me, believe Ari Fleischer and Victor David Hansen, is for people to come here illegally, make dreamers out of them, make citizens out of them, and make voters out of them. And it's hard to argue with that they're doing a significant amount of that. So they used to be against these policies. Chuck Schumer said you don't jail people while they're here. You stop them before they get here. That's what he said just over a decade ago. Of course, that's all gone. They voted for the wall. That's all gone. And they used to say, get in line, which, by the way, is most of our history. People got here illegally. It's wrong to say we only had illegal immigration in the past. On the other hand, we didn't have the percentage of illegal immigration that we currently do. Fine point of it is, the Democrats think this is an issue for them, open borders, and it may be in California. The question is, will it be so in Texas, which they're trying to overturn with that? Will it be in Arizona, New Mexico, and the states that will decide the election next year? Because California, sad to say, is going to vote for the Democrat nominee, no matter who and how crazy that person is. So the question is, does the rest of the country in swing states think the open border policy adopted by the Democrats is a bad way to go? The polls say most people are against it, and that would be skewed even more if you took California out of the equation and New York. So does that show up in Florida, Ohio, Michigan, and the rest?
Want to note, California is ground zero for so many of these issues. Want to note that you were once head of the Republican Party in the state, so you know what you speak. And President Trump this week revealed some new stipulations he wants for people who are coming here. He wants them to be able to have money and prove that they can come here and support themselves, but they won't be a charge on the state.
Can I tell you how important this is? You know, America does not have a common DNA. We're not all Germans. We're not all Japanese. We can't all be Italians. We're not
Tom Del Beccaro.
we're not all English. Our DNA is a cultural DNA of seeking opportunity. And if you break that bond, where people come here not for opportunity and to build America, but to be on welfare, you're going to fracture this society more than any place in Europe, because the Swedish and the English will hang with each other because they've been doing it for centuries. We don't have that history. It is so dangerous to break that cultural opportunistic bond. And that's what the Democrats are threatening to do with open borders.
Once this country got on its feet and established a rule of law, that's the way it was. They wanted to see you had some money. They wanted to see you had a sponsor. What are your plans? What are you going to do when you're here?
And by the way, that's most of the rest of the world. Australia, you have to bring over assets. You don't get to go to Japan and emigrate. So the American media paints us as being draconian, but do yourself a favor, try and run across the border from Guatemala to Mexico and see how that turns out for you.
You'll get thrown in jail. At worst, you could get shot in certain areas
Unless,
of
of
the
course,
world.
you're saying you're going to the United States. But they've changed, which is why those numbers are dipping.
Let's go to something else on your social media. It involves Epstein and
What
Clinton.
did I say now?
You just shared something that they're all sharing. It's trending on social media. How weird is all this? Just when you thought it couldn't get any more, fill in the blank. I mean, what is the deal here? That's a real picture. That's not just fake news and stuff that's floating around. That was actually reportedly in his Manhattan mansion, Epstein's.
You mean his 20,000 square foot 5-story? Yeah, no, this is going to get weirder. I heard today that there's speculation that if he had a gun in his cell, he wouldn't have committed suicide, if you know what I mean.
Or gotten suicided as people.
Yes.
I mean, the conspiracy theories you could spend all day.
So if you treat this as the way they used to go after the mafia, they may have gotten to him, but there's still a lot of evidence for everyone below. And I wouldn't be sitting too comfortable. I still do not understand why this guy came back to the United States. He had to know they were on his path.
A lot of questions, more questions than answers. Tom, so glad to have you here.
All right.
Can't thank you
Love
enough.
being with you.
Love you too. We'll see you back here next time, hopefully in studio soon. Author of The Divided Era, Tom Del Beccaro.